Hi, everyone. Another journey, and before we start this journey, just a reflection. Any thoughts that do come into conversation is of the guests and nothing representative of our guests because everyone has opinion, but we have to respect. Opinions have to be respected in certain contexts. So anything they said, it's their own thoughts, nothing representative they belong to, and that goes for myself as well. But our guest is got a passion for travel, which began at the age of 17 with a trip to London with his father, sparking a lifelong journey of exploration. And he's originally from, and this is me reading it because it's cut off, Issaquah, well, I believe that's pronounced, Washington. He is a U.S. Foreign Service officer, and his adventurous spirit is shaped by Peace Corps service in Tonga and a life-changing backpacking journey through Oceania, Southeast Asia, Northern Europe, and South America. He is also the co-founder of Lana Learn, an e-learning platform, which we no doubt will talk about, and he's writing to inspire others with the wonders of travel, culture, connections, and the power of adventure. I say no more, because it's his journey, not mine, but I welcome Paul to the journey.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, obviously, travel is a key element in anyone's journey, and obviously, when you're younger, that is when the most inspiration kicks in, because obviously, you touched upon going to London. But what was it about going to London that, and I will touch upon London more so, because that's the memory that sticks in the mind when I read your bio. But what was it about London that stuck in your mind when you was younger?
Well, I was just so young and inexperienced. And it was the first time that I got out of my little bubble of childhood, of youth, and saw a different world. I kind of laugh. I look back and I think, London's really not that exotic compared to much of the US compared to the rest of the world. But for me, it was a very big deal. So I was 16 years old when I first traveled overseas, and I was just tagging along with my father, who was on a business trip. He worked at Boeing, and he had a big meeting, a big conference in London. And I was turning 17 years old, and he kind of figured this would be a good birthday gift. And he had no idea the impact that it would have on me. I didn't either. Frankly, I just thought it was a fun thing to do. And maybe the best part is that I could brag to my friends that I went to Europe and I was in a totally different place in the world. And I ate some funny foods and spent money with funny cash. But it was far beyond bragging rights. It was a profound experience for me that changed the rest of my life. Um, Again, I grew up outside of Seattle, Washington, in a suburban area. My neighborhood was full of leafy trees and people on bikes, and I had a core group of friends, and I went to elementary school, middle school, high school with the same people. I really didn't get out much. Honestly, going to the city of Seattle was a big deal growing up. So then suddenly I find myself in London. My dad is out. I take some of the pounds that my dad gave me and started wandering the streets a little bit. And I was just shocked at how excited I felt, how utterly uh, exhilarating I found the experience. People drove on the other side of the road. They had accents. Everybody did. The food really was unusual to me. I
Yeah.
was used to, SpaghettiOs and garlic bread, and here I am eating bangers and mash. And I don't know. I mean, uh, it was different enough for me to realize I wanted a whole lot more of travel, especially international. But it wasn't so different that it frightened me. I mean, had I gone to a place that was dramatically different in culture and weather and climate and geography, food and everything, maybe I would have thought, geez, this is too much. This is crazy. I just want to go back home. But it just whet my appetite. And that was a long time ago. And I honestly haven't really turned back since. I mean, obviously I went back and graduated high school, went to university. But beyond that, I have been traveling and overseas ever since.
Yeah, and you touch upon travel in such a way. I remember when I first traveled, it was on the obviously car, but when you first go by transportation, when I was in England, it was by bus or coach or by train. Train is always good because you saw areas that you was always, you know, looking for new things as you went along the train track. Coach or bus, whatever you want to describe it as, that was always predictable. You always knew you was going to be stuck in traffic. You always knew that you was going to see the same stretch of road. There's nothing different. Now, I started flying in 2001, and my experience of flying for the first time, I just laughed because it was something different. And because you've flown so many times, when you sit in your chair and you feel that thruster being pushed forward by the pilot, and you're just sitting there and you feel that thrust push you forward, it's like you sat back in your seat.
Yeah,
It's the adrenaline rush that kicked in for me, and I was like, this is fun. That's why I was laughing because it was that kind of
yeah,
experience.
yeah. I think for me, when it comes to travel, adrenaline rush is a good way to describe it. Every time I go to a new place, yeah, certainly the journey. I even get to the airport, my local airport, and I feel the adrenaline rush. Then I get on the plane, and suddenly we're in a new place. And it can be, an hour flight away. It can be 25 hours. But getting out of the airport, looking around, having that rush of feelings and emotions, you get all the senses lit up. When you
Mm.
arrive to a new place, often the weather, the temperature is different. And then the smells, the people, the sights, the sound, everything. Adrenaline rush every time.
Yeah, and the experience what I liked is when you're going up into the sky, going up to, I think on average it's about 35,000 feet they go nowadays.
Hmm.
I think the bigger jets go 40,000 depending on the length of journey, but most of them go 35,000.
Yeah.
And just seeing the way the world, land beneath you disappears, and when you're above the clouds, it's like, wow. And I discovered that when I first came to America, it's like, wow, you see a lot of blue skies because I was blessed with going on a good clear day. There's hardly any turbulence.
Hmm.
And then when we dropped down into the Canadian area before we dropped down into, going into New York, because that's where I flew into the first time I came to America. You saw the top of, the land beneath you. It's like, wow. It took my
Yeah.
breath away. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's something different. Now you can see what's there. You can see the outline. You can see the colours. You can see the shapes. You can see the water. But
Yeah.
as the plane got closer to New York, you started to pick out more and more and more. And then I think we was running alongside the coast before turning into the airport into, I think it was, trying to remember where it was, New York, JFK. We turned,
JFK, yeah.
yeah, when it turned into JFK, and then I didn't see the major highlight, which is the Statue of Liberty and all that, but we
Mm.
turned in and you started seeing things and you saw things differently. And you said, this is something different. I like it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned the um, sort of special experience that a plane ride can bring. I love travel in every capacity. And, you mentioned buses, coaches, cars. I think all of them have great merit. I love road trips, but there is something about an airplane ride that really distinguishes one destination from another. And I think it's, the technology has been around for a long time, over 100 years now, but it is so unusual. You are stuffed in this aluminum tube and flown up into the stratosphere, and everything in your reality is fundamentally different as you're floating above the world. And then you come down and it's totally different. And I think because of that, an unusual experience, even though we're used to, I mean, I've been on hundreds of flights at this point, but still, every time it is an interesting experience because it is just impressive technology that allows us to do that.
Yes.
But again, it can bring us from one place to the next relatively quickly, and those destinations are inevitably very different. So yeah,
Mm.
I think the journey of a plane ride is different than other types of journey when it comes to travel.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how a plane can stay up. It's amazing
Yeah,
because you see how heavy a plane is. I always make the joke, and I know it's not this way because it's down to, technology, how you said, but it's like you got a catapult and you put a plane in the catapult and you're just flung into because it makes you wonder how it stays so long in the sky. And I just like that experience. Like I said, it makes me breathless every time I talk about it. And even when I watch YouTube videos, and I just like, wow.
yeah,
Now, the one plane I would have wanted to catch, and I did see it a few times when I was growing up, obviously, because my great nan lived in the flight path of it, was Concorde.
yeah.
Now, Concorde was a unique, different than what you see now. Yes, you got the A380, but Concorde was unique in its own right mind because of the sonic boom.
Yeah.
Hasn't been
Yeah, I
it hasn't been replicated since.
It hasn't, but actually recently, I think even this week or the week before, there was some news about a company that, well, they're not that new. They've been around for quite a few years, but they are very close to being able to provide supersonic airplanes again on a commercial market. I mean, it really is, speaking of technology, it is really sad that we've been, away from this technology now for over 20 years, supersonic flight.
Mm,
Because usually, as we progress as a human civilization, the technology gets more advanced and more advanced and more. But we really regressed when the Concorde stopped flying.
mm,
But yeah, I do understand that it's coming back soon. So we'll hopefully get a chance to do that, and because that is certainly a dream of mine, just for the experience.
yeah, I agree with that. So, going into the present, and obviously we're talking about your um being a co-founder about Lana Learn, and which is an e-learning platform, and we can talk about where people can access this, and we talk about your book. Can you tell us about the challenges you found when you started these two projects?
Yeah, sure. So Lana Learn is something that I started with my wife. So when I say co-founder, it's my wife and I. It is something that we wanted to do because we're passionate about education. We wanted to provide educational services to as many people as possible. She, at one point, was a teacher, and we're both entrepreneurial. So we looked around and tried to find a niche in the market where e-learning was needed. There are a lot of e-learning platforms now, especially I think after COVID really forced a lot of people to go to e-learning. But the way our company shook out was it really focuses on test preparation. So it helps high school students get into universities. And also, we have some overseas education projects. So, for example, one of the bigger ones is a project where we're helping Vietnamese people learn English. And we're hoping to expand beyond Vietnam into other markets like Thailand and Laos. But yeah, so that's the origin of that. It is lanalearn.com. Happy to have people check that out and learn more about it. It is something that my wife does full time. Um, Now, the book is a different project. This has been a passion project of mine for a long time. It was a um, a depiction of my year-long trip around the world after I completed the Peace Corps. So turning back the clock, after I graduated university, I had this absolute bug to travel and see the world. Of course, I didn't have that much money. I was just a bored college student. I was a waiter in a variety of restaurants, so I had managed to save up a little bit of money. Uh, but then I heard, before I spent that money, I heard about this program called the Peace Corps. It's something the U.S. government funds to have college graduates go live overseas in developing countries, in villages, learning languages, learning cultures, and helping where help is wanted. Um, I went to Tonga. They assigned me to Tonga in the South Pacific. And, my first trip to London was a profound experience, but my 2 years in Tonga was utterly life-changing. Of course, it was very difficult at first because even referenced this before. Um, London and Seattle are not terribly different, but Tonga, compared to my upbringing in suburban America, was just about opposite in every way.
A complete
The
flip
Seattle area,
side.
it really was, yeah. Seattle area is cool, a lot of rain, cold in the winters. Tonga's hot all the time. Um, the people, they have a language that is totally different than anything Hawaiian. So if you know aloha or mahalo, it sounds a little bit like that. But of course, I didn't know anything, so I couldn't really communicate. The living, the lifestyle, much more relaxed, laid back. People just walk around the village all the time. I mean, that's the main source of entertainment is to go see neighbors and family and
Hmm.
see how, kids are growing up. And it's not the hustle and bustle that I grew up with. It was dramatically different. And I'll be honest, the first few months was really challenging. I mean, I barely made it. I almost came home early because it was just so different. I was just 23 years old and I didn't know what I was doing. I was, of course, homesick and sad, and it was tough. It was really tough. But you know, I my I called home my dad, who took me to London, and said, "You know what? This is going to be a great experience." And he said, "Stick with it.
Hmm.
Perseverance is important." And I did. And it ended up, of course, being an absolutely fantastic experience. I learned the language. I developed very close relationships with my neighbors, my host family, other Peace Corps volunteers. I came to love the food and the lifestyle. I mean, geez, talk about laid back afterwards. I could sit and stare at a wall for an hour and not get bored. I mean, it's just a different pace of life, and at first it was a turnoff. I thought, wait, how can people just not do stuff all the time and be busy all the time? By the end, I thought in reverse, how are, Americans, Westerners so busy all the time? Why don't they relax and calm down a little bit?
So
Now I
it
think I found a
so
happy
so
medium.
the so the sense of community, because I like the word you trying to say there, is about community and the community just coming as one, I believe. Where, the fact was you said about going down the street, going down the road, they saw families.
Life is to connect with people around you, with your neighbors, with extended family. It is something that I really learned to appreciate much better at the time, and it's something I've brought with me. And it's actually related to the travel after the Peace Corps. So I did 2 years in Tonga, 2 years in the Peace Corps, and then I used that money I saved up as a waiter in college, and I spent it backpacking around the world for a year. And I went to Southeast Asia and Europe and South America. And what I discovered, what I wrote about in my book, Global Horizons, Endless Horizons, sorry, um, the community of backpacker travelers, the community of budget travelers, is connected all over the world. I could be in Koh Samui, Thailand, or Innsbruck, Switzerland, or Cusco, Peru. And the people that I met, fellow travelers, they formed a community. They had commonality, some passions, similar goals. And that community is something that I found really comforting as I traveled and I wrote about in my book.
Yeah, and that's just amazing because, you know, I haven't encountered many cultures, not because I've been sheltered from it, but, I came to America, I saw the aspects of countryside, rural America, I saw the urban side of America. I've been to Wales in the UK, which is very rural. I've been living in Cornwall in England, which is very, very rural. I've been to France, I've been to Greece. Those places are just some of the places I've been. Ireland, it's different elements. London, different parts of England I've been, and each place I've been, I've discovered there's different parts that makes the part, that particular area unique. Now, I've had bad experiences, I've had good experiences. The bad experience, I will give one example. I was trying to find something once in a populated area. Yes, it was the second biggest city in England. It was good. It was a multi-diverse country, city, should I say, not country. And I was trying to find something on my phone. I was on the public transportation because that's the only transportation I had at the time. And I couldn't find it. I was using my phone to use maps. Someone I thought genuinely was, we can help you find where you're going. I genuinely believed them. I got off the bus. They said, took me down the street saying it's this way. I genuinely believed them. They threatened me with a knife saying we're going to, knife you if you don't give us
Hmm.
your phone. And I had to give my
Oh,
phone
terrible.
over, which was tragic, I know. And then to top it off, someone saw me giving chase, even though they say don't chase them. I was giving chase to try and get my phone back. Someone saw me, they stopped the car, said get in, we try and find them, but used my phone, called the police. And I'm not saying this in any nasty way against the police because I know the police are their own person. And they came along. They said, "Can you see your, people who took your phone?" I said, "No." And they said, "You sure?" I said, "No, I can't." And where I got mugged, if you want to call it that way, was in an ethnic, Eastern culture background, and I was mugged by white people, and they were trying to get me to be
Hmm.
racist, to say I can't see a mirror, but they were trying to imply there's no white people here. It's a, you know,
Hmm.
they wanted to arrest me for being racist. That's what they wanted, point blank. I knew that. I didn't give in to what
Yeah,
they wanted me
that's
to say, but I'd lost my phone. I lost my faith at the time in that particular police force, because obviously in the UK you get different police forces. And I thought,
yeah.
the one blessing, they didn't realise I had money in my back pocket. Because I did have money. That's the whole thing. I had money in. They could have took more than just my phone. They could have had my money, but they didn't have my money. But the fact
Yeah.
was, I had that in my back
Well,
pocket, and
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, that's very frustrating. I'm sorry that you went through that. But it is a reality of, well, anywhere. I mean, you almost cannot escape some security risks anywhere you go in the world. I,
yeah,
I was actually quite surprised in my year-long travel. I mean, a year, and I didn't go to the nicest places all the time. Actually, most of the time, it was not the nicest intentionally. Well, first of all, I couldn't afford it, and second of all, I wanted to experience the more gritty parts of the world. I wanted to be among the people. I didn't need to be, acting like a rich American and everywhere I went and staying in fancy hotels. I wanted to stay in villages. I wanted to essentially recreate my Peace Corps experience while I was traveling. And what really surprised me was I had very few safety problems. I honestly felt that maybe I even had more. safe experiences, less, encounters with crime because I was among the people and they were taking care of me. For some reason, I was really worried about Indonesia. I had never been in a Muslim majority country. I had heard in the news terrorist attacks or whatever. But I also heard it was beautiful and it was definitely a place I couldn't miss. So I went, but I was very nervous. And I have to say, of all the places that I went, I was probably the safest there of all. Immediately, I met people and they took me in.
Mm,
They were there protecting me. I think they could sense that I was nervous, or they knew that there had been some bad press coverage about their country, so they were making an extra effort to make sure that I felt safe and welcome, and I did. It
yeah.
was it was a great experience. But yeah, I mean, I still had some pickpockets later in other countries, and a few attempted scams. There's one taxi scam that I write about in the book in Bolivia. And Bolivia is a beautiful country with wonderful people, but I had unfortunate experience of encountering somebody who wanted to, take my money. They saw me as a target. I got off a bus at a bus station, got in a taxi, and they tried to they tried to scam me. It was kind of comical, actually. They didn't do a very good job, and at the next stop sign, I jumped out of the jumped out of the car. I was fine. But later that day, believe it or not, um, I said, I want to escape from travel a little bit. So I went into a McDonald's for a little taste of home, and it was there that someone stole my backpack. So, so you never know. You never know what can happen. And yeah, that was a tough day, but I got through it.
And obviously, your book is on Amazon, and the link will be in the description below.
Yeah.
So last of all, you did feature your website as well. So people be wanting to know about your website. Can you tell us a bit about your website and what it contains?
Sure. Yeah. And paulwneville.com. W for William, so paulwneville.com, and that has information about the book. I'm happy to share my story. It was a lot of fun. I had a really profound journey, seeing so many places around the world, and it shaped who I am, and
Yeah.
it gave me a better perspective of the world and where I fit in the world.
And the last ultimate question. People travel young, people travel old. And obviously the journey's never as straightforward as it looks because obviously you have to go on those diversions. But what would you say to people to help them on their journey?
Yeah, well, everybody's trip is going to be different, and that's the way it should be. Everybody's journey is going to be unique to their own experience. Um, I would say there's different messages for, different people, different ages. If you're young, it probably sounds very exciting and exotic, and it's the adventure that is alluring. And I would just say, go for it. I mean, the biggest inhibitor of people traveling is their own fear, their own anxiety about leaving the comforts of their home to try something new. And I just say, you know what? You got to get through that. You got to overcome any concerns that you have about leaving your home to try something new. Go out and just do it. You have to save a little bit of money. Oftentimes, if you're doing budget travel, it's just the flight. If you can get that flight to Indonesia or Thailand or Chile or Brazil, you know, if you can just get that flight, you have to just get there. And once you're there, I almost guarantee you're going to have a profound, wonderful, incredible experience. So just get out and do it. Now, if you're older, now at this point, I have a family. I have three sons, more complicated logistically, but still, it's wonderful experience. Now I get to share it with my children. They're getting to have the experiences that I had when I was young. Um, that requires a little more planning when
Mm,
you're a little older,
yeah,
but it shouldn't deter anyone. Still do it. Travel is one of the best things that you can do in life to experience the rest of the world, to benefit yourself. And yeah, I say get out and do it.
I like that. And I'd like to say thank you for sharing your journey with us today, Paul. It has been enjoyable, and I know the world is big, is expansive, it's out there to explore, and no doubt you will say, go for it. And I can hear that in your words. You are saying, go for it.
Yeah, agreed.
But thank you for sharing your journey
Thanks.
today.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
And now,
Thanks.
a message from Ammie. Ammie, it's over to you.
Hello, I am Ammie Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later. The Journey Podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.